Greetings folks, welcome back. Last year, the 2020 Asus Zephyrus G14 was probably one of the most, if not the most popular, gaming laptop for that year. But my complaints with that device upon my review was, had one of the hottest CPUs ever tested, the keyboard lighting uniformity was extremely poor, and the 120Hz Full HD display had a high response time. Did Asus address those for this model? Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes. I'm Bob of All Trades. This is my review of the 2021 model Asus Zephyrus G14.
Meet the Asus Zephyrus G14, the 2021 model. Its magnesium aluminum alloy makes it lightweight at 3.5 pounds, and the honeycomb reinforcements under the palm rest maximize strength without adding additional bulk weight. I really like the white lid and wonder what your thoughts are on an all-white build versus the current white lid, silver deck, and bottom panel. Overall, nice fit and finish on the G14 as well as the previously reviewed G15. This SKU has a Full HD 144Hz Pantone validated FreeSync display at 97% standard RGB, 75% Adobe RGB at 329 nits. Last year's 120Hz model had very high response time. This one definitely feels much faster, but I do not possess the tools to test this specifically, and cross-referencing the part number does not reveal any information about response time as of today's review. Inside is the Ryzen 9 5900HS with factory liquid metal, a 60-watt 3060 with non-conductive thermal paste, 16 gigabytes of memory, but half of this is soldered to the motherboard, a single M.2 slot that is occupied with 1 terabyte of NVMe storage, and the AX200 Wi-Fi 6. Battery life was similar to last year's model I tested. Its 76 watt-hour solution at around 25 to 50% brightness, keyboard lighting disabled, was good for about 7 hours of daily tasks, and this was fairly consistent. The lid magnetizes to the keyboard deck so it's not flopping around during travel, and without any indentation to open the lid, having small fingers or thumbnail helps it opening the Zephyrus G14. This is not a complaint, but rather an observation. I suggest a different design or a small groove cut into the chassis similar to a MacBook. As the lid moves back, it acts as a prop for the keyboard. While this can potentially aid in airflow, it's really nice for improved ergonomics for typing. The power button doubles as a fingerprint reader for Windows Hello, but it only worked about 50% of the time. The glass Microsoft Precision Trackpad is small but excellent. The keyboard is great, but silver keys over white LED backlighting is not ideal. For better daytime visibility, turn off the backlighting. Thankfully, the lighting uniformity is where it should be, and others with this newer model have reported the same. There's a built-in mic, but no webcam on this G14. Now, I cut Asus some slack last year since the G14 was already made before many of us were working or learning remotely, but fast forward 1 year later, I would have made sure a webcam was added. Port selection on the right includes a USB-C, 2 USB 3.2s, and a Kensington lock. Port selection on the left includes a headphone mic combo port, a USB-C that'll do DisplayPort 1.4 and power delivery, HDMI 2.0B, and the barrel power port. Supplying power to the G14 is a 180 watt brick that'll charge the Zephyrus powered off from empty to full in about 90 minutes. Benchmarks of the Zephyrus G14 are interesting thanks to NVIDIA's dynamic boost. This allows the GPU to boost past its 60 watt base up to 80 watts when the CPU wattage is low. Benchmarks such as Firestrike, TimeSpy, and Port Royale demonstrate this GPU boost nicely, and the results look compelling. Unfortunately, real gaming is not always as kind to the CPU, and higher wattage is required from the 5900HS to feed the 3060 the beans. I have half a dozen games showcased individually on a specific channel called Tested. Each video is under 3 minutes in length and discusses frame rates and thermal expectations on a per game basis. If you need more information on a particular title, check that channel out and let me know in the comment section below. Now before we dive in, understanding how the 5900HS works in this G14 is important. With the Armory Crate software, selecting manual mode provides 2 sliders for the 5900HS. SPL sets the max CPU wattage pulled when combined with the GPU load. While it does say 80 watts, it will not do this, and I'll demonstrate what's typical in a hot second. SPPT is the wattage pulled when the 5900HS is loaded by itself, and it rarely exceeds 65 watts. For many CPU-intensive AAA titles, setting both sliders to their maximum and making sure the fans are maxed out by the time the CPU and GPU hit 60 degrees Celsius, thermal performance on the GPU is between the upper 60s and thermal throttling at 86 degrees Celsius, and the CPU into the 80s all the way into the mid-90s. Some occasions, such as Cyberpunk 2077, that can pull high CPU and GPU wattage, depending on the settings, push the Zephyrus G14 into thermal throttling territory. These cases are few and far between, however. Even so, you deserve to see this because games are only going to get harder to run, so temperatures like this will become more frequent as time goes on. These temps do make for an uncomfortable skin temperature, however. Now let's explore fan acoustics across 4 different settings. Maxing out the fans, you'll have fan acoustic decibels near 55 dB, and it sounds like this. Using the turbo mode profile, the fans will lower the fan acoustics to 47 decibels. Performance fan acoustics cap out at around 44 decibels and sound like this. And the silent fan acoustics will cap out near 42 dB. The silent profile prioritizes fan acoustics, and it will limit your game to 60 FPS. Because of the lower power 3060, you will likely get away with a 60 FPS experience in many games, unlike the Zephyrus G15 and its 80 watt 3070. That combo was a bit too much for the silent profile as far as offering a more frequent 60 FPS gameplay experience. What's really nice about the current state of the G14 was the overall balance of the CPU and GPU. Since you can play most games without thermal throttling, that means we'll have many unique opportunities to explore some fine-tuning. For example, not all games will need the maximum CPU wattage, and more importantly, you personally may not require wringing out every last drop of FPS from your G14 either. For example, while playing on a random Fortnite server, I limited the fan speed, I limited the CPU wattage to 15 watts, and then I limited the GPU to its extreme profile, something that did not work on the G15 below its 80 watt base. Here, I'm playing at 42 decibels at over 80 FPS, and it's thermally solid. Of course, this is a pretty extreme scenario, and it does not apply to every title, but there is some wiggle room for you to explore. So if we take this into Warzone with the render worker count tweak set to 4, low settings, we'll compare maximum wattage versus 15 watts on the CPU. Now, if you're good with reduced GPU utilization and performance for thermal bragging rights, who am I to judge? Have at it, my friends. But when you have a laptop that typically does not thermal throttle combined with the simple wattage sliders Asus has provided in their software, there's so much adjustability to explore on this G14 that I'm pretty sure most users will find their own personal sweet spot. As far as the 60 watt 3060 stacking up to other current laptop graphics cards, real game performance is similar to the 115 watt 2060 or the 90 watt 2070 Super Max Q. It's also about 20% faster than the previous G14's 65 watt 2060 Max Q, it just does so pulling 60 watts. Speaker audio was great last year, and it still is on this newer model. It passes real-time audio as long as you are setting the software to run using the integrated graphics only. Have a listen.
Okay, when it comes to a device this small, balancing the wattage and performance from the CPU and GPU is very important. If they were to put a higher wattage graphics card inside of this device, I think it would have crippled CPU performance and you would see thermal throttling across almost every title out there, right? That would not be a good experience. So I have to commend Asus for doing a tip-top job on just the overall balance of parts chosen, because the scalability, the thermal performance, the adjustability between the wattage and fan acoustics on this device is way better than most laptops that are larger. So, wow, spectacular job. Not having a webcam, that is a bummer. having 8 gigabytes of soldered memory and 1 DIMM available for upgrading. I have a problem with that, especially on the G15 model, and I was very clear on that in my review. With this device here, it's kind of small. Where are they going to put it? I know we have seen 2 DIMM slots that are accessible on 14-inch devices. This one has heavier duty parts, there's lots of heat pipes, it has a large battery. Where is there room to do that, right? I want 2 DIMM slots, I just don't know where they're going to go, all right? So I do have to complain about that, but I'm not naive enough to, not understand that it's just, there's no space for it. So overall, this is a spectacular laptop when you compare it against the previous generation model. I do recommend it. However, at $1,500, if you were looking for the gaming performance expectations first, this is probably not the laptop for you. This is form factor first. It just happens to do everything else now much better than it did on the previous model, and for that, 2 thumbs up. All right, folks, that's going to do it. I'm Bob of All Trades. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.